And there are just some things that are not comfortable for white people. They're not comfortable for them to talk about the possibility that Africans were here before the Europeans. So what do you do with the heads in Mexico that you find at San Lorenzo, at Tres Zapotes? What do you do with those? All right? You ignore them. What do you do with Columbus's diary that says the Africans know a way to the west, but it goes around the doldrums, we would never survive? What do you do with that? You ignore it. What do you do with Balboa's diary that says we came upon this African village in the isthmus? How did these Africans get here? What do you do with that? You ignore it. Why? To preserve the myth that the Europeans were here first. What do you do with all of this written literature and history that says that Abubakar II of Mali sent 200 ships to the west, and one came back and said they were afraid that the others disappeared? And then to have Balboa find this village that looks just like Mali, where he was, what do you do with this information? You ignore it. You ignore it. Why? To preserve the myth of white superiority. That's what our whole educational process is devoted to. What do you do with this whole history? This is a written history, my dear. Written. I'm not talking about hearsay. I'm not talking about a griot said this. I'm not talking about something handed down from one generation to the other through voice. I'm talking about written history of the Egyptians. What do you do with this? You ignore it.
Listen, we have always been in America. Watch this.
In 1992, the female scientist who developed the test to test hair for drugs, so that test that people still use if you're a football player or if you're an athlete or if you're a prison person, they want to see if you're a prisoner and they want to see if you've been taking drugs, they examine the proteins in your hair and they can see what kind of drugs you've been taking. The woman who developed that test in 1992 found cocaine in the stomach of Ramesses II. And she was so shocked by what she found, because she knows that cocaine comes from America, she tested and retested and retested because she knew she was going to get loads of stick. Then she tested Sudanese mummies and found the same thing, and read what she said. She got hate mail, people cussing her, people were just like, what are you talking about, you're an idiot. A woman whose scientific prowess is there, is there to be attested to, but what she discovered was so upsetting for some people that she was hated on by people who, of course, are nowhere near as scientifically qualified as she is.
This is why they hate when we talk about black presence in America before slavery. They know it's true. That's why they try to hide it.
It comes as a great shock around the age of 5 or 6 or 7 to discover that the flag to which you have pledged allegiance, along with everybody else, has not pledged allegiance to you. It comes as a great shock to discover that Gary Cooper killing off the Indians when you were rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians were you. That the Indians were you. It comes as a great shock to discover that the country, which is your birthplace, and to which you owe your life and your identity.
No, you weren't colored.
No, I remember when we became African Americans, because I worked in the black marketing department at Coca-Cola, where we were selling Coke to our people. And the vice president came in and said, okay, we are now African Americans. We were like, all righty, African.
How you spell that again?
Right.
Is it 2 ways?
And I heard this white woman was sitting next to me, and she said to another white woman, they don't know who they are.
Wow.
That's what I said. And I'm gonna take my wig off, and I'll be honest, I did not know what to say to her.
I think you're not supposed to say Indian either.
Oh wait, really?
Yeah. I think you're supposed to call them African Americans.